Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited to have you today for Clea Mahoney's Inside Out, moving from internal L&D to customer education. Before I introduce her, can you let me know in chat everybody's seeing us okay? Want to make sure you're all settled in.
Yeah, also let me know that my microphone is working and that you are here. Awesome.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I'm thrilled to introduce Clea Mahoney. She's an expert in instructional design and online education. She combines her love for engaging learning experiences with a passion for play, making her a standout in the field. Her experience in bridging the gap between traditional employee training and innovative customer education resonates so deeply with the work many of us do. I can't wait to hear her thoughts on this topic today. Please join me in welcoming Clea Mahoney with lots of interaction in the reactions button down below and then engagement in the chat to your right. Here we go.
Amazing. Liz, I think I need to hire you to do like all my intros because you sounded like you were talking about someone super special and important. I'm like, wait a second, is this my session? But I loved it. And thank you all for being here today. I really love the TLDC community. I spoke at another conference back in, I don't know, January or February. And I'm still a nervous public speaker, but I do these things because I care about the community so much. I want to share my story. And before I officially kick it off, I'll share a little bit of background on why this session. So, Luis let me know through the Slack channel for this group that we're organizing a Women in L&D conference. And I'm like, yes, amazing. I love supporting women. I love L&D. Sign me up. And then I hesitated and I thought, do I even still work in L&D? Because when I tend to think of learning and development, it's internal, it's employee training, it's instructional design for the folks who are working at an organization or maybe the students of a higher education institution. And recently, actually just a month and a day ago, I moved over to maybe the dark side, customer education. I reached out to Luis via DM and said, hey, Luis, here's what I'm thinking about pitching, but let me know if it's not a fit. Absolutely happy to pass. And he said, no, I bet a lot of people would be really interested in hearing your story. So here I am, already out of breath. Luckily, I've got some water here and a dog at my feet. And I just want to take a moment to look at the chat, see who's here. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Today, I'll be talking about Inside Out, what it's like to move from internal learning and development to the exciting world of customer education. And there will be a lot of kind of chicken and egg puns because my latest company where I'm working at right now and loving it is called Roost. Our mascot is a chicken. Our customer education academy is called Cluck University. And so I feel like I've really found my playful fit in this group. And I just had to give them a shout out and honor the chicken in all of us. So if we haven't met before, I'm Clea. Again, I'm 1 month into my new role at Roost as a training and community enablement manager. I'm a library science major by background, got my master's degree in that, never actually used it. And I think I probably would have studied instructional design if I knew that was a thing back then. But all I knew was that libraries were a place for learning. I wanted to support that. And I really love books. So I wouldn't be me if I didn't share 2 books that have helped me in my foray into the training world and that are really helping me a lot in customer education. One of them is Cassie Labori and Tom Stone's Interact and Engage. I came across that book when I think there were just 50 examples. This is the latest edition with 75, so really want to get my hands on it. Maybe I'll see if my library has it. But I found out about this in 2016 when I worked as a faculty trainer in learning management systems in higher education. I knew that technical training could be very boring, and I wanted to avoid that for my audience at all costs. So this book continues to inspire me. It reminds me that A live instructor-led session is for my students, for my audience, for my customers. It's not just a lecture. So that has really helped me a lot, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give it a plug. The other book here has really helped me with the community aspects, and it's Julie Dirksen. I'm an unabashed fangirl. I try to go to everything she does. I've listened to every single podcast she's been on. She really inspires me in the realm of instructional design. I'm actually leading a book club on this one, Talk to the Elephant. It is about designing learning for behavior change this Friday for the customer education community. And I chose it because I think it'll unlock some new community keys for me. And I'll share more about that later in this session. But before I keep talking, I would love to know what comes to mind for you when you hear the term customer education. Maybe it's new to you. Maybe you have some bad feelings about it. I want to hear the good, the bad, the in between, everything. Maybe some of you have worked or do currently work in customer education. And this will kind of help me tailor the rest of the session to who's here today. And thanks, Liz, for re-sharing the question in the chat. So I see from Teresa, or actually I'll go from Diane first. Teaching customers how to use a product. Yep, it can absolutely entail that. And that's my main focus at Roost. Teresa says, setting customers up for success. Absolutely. That's one of the things that really calls to me. Amanda is sharing on-demand learning resources. Yeah, absolutely. Rhonda Lynn, customer experience. Yvonne is saying, I went from customer education to internal L&D. So you went outside in. That's awesome. I'd love to swap stories sometime. Tati shared the book for Julie Dirksen's latest. A link to that in the chat if anyone wants to grab it. And Maureen shared building confidence. Yes, sometimes customers really want to use our product, but they're intimidated. I work with a technical platform now, and I come from a non-technical background. I'm kind of learning some coding skills as I go. So I'm all about making that learning accessible, empowering our folks to learn. Tati is saying customer ed is way more fun than internal training. I would have to agree with you. And, different strokes for different folks. But that's one of the main reasons I wanted to switch. I just kept hearing how much fun it was. And I have worked a little bit in marketing, so some of those things kind of came naturally. My colleague Trisha is here. Hi, Trisha. Clea's learning and teaching technical skills. I am, yeah. And I think sometimes one of the best ways to learn something is to have to teach it. So I've watched my colleague Eddie present these amazing sessions, and I'm like, yep, I understand it. This makes sense. But then until I have to build my own slides and own examples, I really don't get it. So yeah, teaching is a great way to learn too. Thanks so much, folks, for sharing in the chat. This is really helpful. And I heard so many different aspects of customer education, and that's something that resonates with me. I think I'll never get bored in instructional design in general, but I'll especially never get bored in customer education because it's always changing, and there's always a little bit of a challenge. So where are we going today? I'm going to do my best to stick to this agenda, but I do have ADHD, so we might take some side detours, and I hope you're up for that journey. I'm going to start with why I stepped outside the internal L&D box. I promise no more dancing. I'll share some of my own transition tips, some skills that I brought with me, and some skills that I'm looking to deepen and even grow. I'll spend a little bit of time on engagement, not about getting married to customer education. I already have an amazing husband. He cheered me on for this presentation. He told me, go for that job, even if you think you can't get it. You're going to be great. So I don't mean getting married, but I mean that engaging our customers, to me, it kind of feels like a never-ending quest. And it's something that kind of deepens my why, and it deepens my interest in the field. We'll wrap up with some frequently asked questions. By frequently asked, I mean, A day or two before this event, I pestered some LinkedIn friends to share what would you like me to talk about, because I don't just want to make this the Clea Mahoney show. They shared some excellent questions. So I'll tackle those, and I'll also give you a chance to add even more questions to the little Q&A box that is somewhere on your screen. So don't be shy about adding questions as we go along, and then Liz will help me facilitate those towards the end. So, to begin with, moving out of the box, or kind of hatching as a young baby chick from the nest. In 2023, it was a rough year. I lost my first internal and official instructional designer role at a tech company. And I'm like, never working for tech again. Well, never say never, people. And I left another job after only about 6 or 7 months. This was in internal learning and development at a big accounting firm, and it focused on lots of compliance training, which could be super boring, but I saw a unique challenge to try to make it as interesting and as useful as possible there. Both of those jobs were really interesting, but ultimately I wasn't very happy at either. So after those two losses, I thought, where do I go from here? Maybe I need to go back to grad school. Maybe I need to try to work at my neighborhood library. They probably wouldn't be able to pay me, but what do I do here? And what really helped me was two different coaching experiences. I resisted coaching for a long time. I thought that is for fancy executives, not me. But one of my friends who also left that tech company, she kind of found her true calling as a coach. And in exchange for giving her some feedback on her coaching model and some educational materials, she gave me a greatly discounted rate. One of the things that we focused on first was figuring out what my core values were, or are rather. And that was really hard for me. I don't know if anyone else has ever done that sort of exercise, but I just said, Santana, you tell me, you know me pretty well. What are my core values? And she's like, no, Clea, they have to come from you. So I think I gave her a list of like 20. And over the course of a few sessions, we managed to narrow it down to these 7 that I wrote inside one of the notebooks on my desk. And I really am happiest when I'm able to apply all of these. So they are creativity. You can maybe kind of tell that with the chicken puns. Curiosity. I'm always asking questions, always looking to learn more. Playfulness. I think that we should have as much fun as possible at work. And I've worked at some places that don't always support that. Kindness. That's one thing that is really important to me, especially in the teaching world. I've had some very unkind teachers, and I never want to shame my students or put them down. Same with my colleagues, same with our customers. Growth and resilience. I've definitely overcome some challenges, and I want to try to help other people do that. And wholeheartedness was the last one I landed on. Brene Brown talks about that a lot, so I won't try to summarize her extensive body of research. But to me, it really means that I can just bring all of me to work, even the slightly annoying and weird and confusing parts, and I can contribute and I can find community and connection and value. So I was really looking to do that at my next job or in the next area in which I wanted to work. I also reflected on my work with a past coach at that tech company. I benefited from that the last few months I was there. We focused on things like intuition, which again, I thought that's for other people. I don't have intuition. You tell me what I should be focusing on. But I came around. I learned a lot from that coach, Lisa Sanchez. And one of the things that she encouraged me to do on maybe even my last day there, when I was really distraught about losing my job, was to think about what I wanted next. And one of the things that came up over and over again was I really want to be part of a supportive, collaborative team. I didn't have so much of that recently, and I missed it, and I wanted it back. I have it now. I have a fantastic team. I'm really happy to be there. And I know it's not just kind of the honeymoon phase, because I'm about a month in and I'm not sick of these people, and I don't think they're sick of me yet either. So we're very open. We're very sharing with each other. This morning, I got to nerd out about adult learning theory, and people listened. So it's a wonderful place to be. And it really helped me to know that about myself and to value looking for that. So let's talk a little bit about skills. In terms of making the transition, I kind of like to look at it as a chicken or the egg situation, right? Which came first? Did I need to upskill? Did I need to learn a whole bunch of new different stuff to work in customer education, which I thought was new to me at the time, but maybe it wasn't? Or could I lean on some existing skills? I think the answer is really both, and I don't think there's a right answer. And ultimately, I'm not here to solve the which came first, chicken or the egg debate. My theory is they both emerged at the same time. There was a chicken and there was an egg, and they were happy. So, in terms of skills, I am going to say that probably every customer education job will be different. So, don't take this as gospel or the absolute truth. These are just the skills that I'm using. Some I brought with me, and some I'm definitely growing in. And of course, I had to be a little playful and go for alliteration here. So, not all customer education skills have to start with C, but these definitely do. And I'm kind of going from some of my oldest skills that I went back to that I knew would help me in this role to some of the skills that are new, fresh, or the ones that I'm deepening on now. One of my first jobs out of college was working as an admin assistant for a heating and cooling distributor. Not the most glamorous industry in the world, but the people were really kind and compassionate, and they were there to help me succeed. Somehow I was promoted to kind of an operations manager role when one of my bosses retired. They thought, Clea, you can handle our customer marketing and incentive programs. Customers love you, and you know marketing. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was a French major and I have good typing skills, but I don't know anything about marketing, but I learned. So this is kind of when I realized, looking back over the span of my maybe varied, maybe random career, that I have worked in customer education before. I helped our customers at Pierce Phelps Incorporated, whose motto was, well, it doesn't really roll off the tip of your tongue, but it's succeeding by helping our customers succeed. That really resonated with me. And that's something that I brought to my customer education experience there. I knew that advertising was new to many of our customers. This is dating myself, absolutely, but the yellow pages were still popular back then. They're like these big, thick phone books that you might use as a car booster seat or as a doorstop. And web advertising was new at the time. So I would organize things like classes that helped customers learn how to build a website, which marketing agency to get involved with to have some, organic SEO stuff and to do some paid campaigns and where to advertise, how to build Facebook pages, etc. I also helped to organize sales and product training, just really based on what our customers needed at the time to succeed in their business. So, in a way, I always had that customer support or customer success, customer service in a nutshell or an eggshell focus. And that's something that I've brought with me through every single job, even when I was working in internal education. I still tend to see people as, students or customers. Employees, in a sense, are customers too of an organization, and you want to try to make them happy and help them out. After that job, I moved to the UK. My husband had a postdoc at Oxford, so that was a pretty special time in our lives. And I wound up working at a marketing firm doing some outbound marketing for Intuit. We were trying to sell QuickBooks Online to accountants across England and Scotland and Wales. I had to do a lot of cold calling. It was a little bit of a sales job in disguise. So I ended up more moving into doing our Salesforce administration, keeping things organized. But that really helped me tune into how important it is to listen to customers. Listen to if they're complaining about the product, maybe not the best time to sell it to them? Or how can you take their feedback and use it and feed it up to the organization to help them improve? There, I also really learned the skill of collaboration. It was a wonderful team. Believe it or not, there was another Clea there, someone from Italy. We became friends, but learned how to collaborate with a lot of different colleagues who are working for a lot of different customers. Beyond Intuit, we had tech companies like Autodesk, SAP, etc. And collaboration is a skill that I've carried with me since. I think one that helps you in pretty much every single job, unless you are working by yourself, which I don't know that anyone really is these days. You know, even if we are sole business owners, we're still collaborating with folks. Beyond that, content writing and design was always something that was appealing to me. I learned how to do it more effectively once I learned that instructional design was a thing in 2016, and I began designing learning experiences, both synchronous, live, online session trainings, in-person workshops, back when we still did those, before my entire team went remote, and also asynchronous, kind of self-paced online, learn these features of the learning management system training. I'd also done some freelance writing since graduating college. I did that for probably over 10 years, and I've always been fascinated with words, wanting to reshape and edit them and use them to really appeal to people and help people learn. So again, that's really an essential skill, I think, in any type of education, but absolutely for sure in customer education, because things are kind of optional. You got to make them interesting. I'll talk more about that soon. Next, we have coaching, and I'll tell you that two specific terms here are in blue because I'm going to expand on them in the next section on engagement. But coaching, again, is something that I really leaned into when I started doing the faculty LMS training in 2016. I knew that I had to overcome some of my public speaking fears. I had to figure out how to relate to an audience, how to figure out where they're at and help them adjust and improve to be able to do things successfully. Because I never wanted just anyone to memorize some facts. I wanted them to actually leave a training session being able to do something, to achieve something on their own without my guidance. That's kind of my ultimate goal there when I teach too. And so in the last few jobs, I didn't do a lot of that. I did more designing learning experiences that other people would facilitate. And I thought I'd be okay with that. But truth be told, I really missed doing the training part. I got so sick of it when I was running like 3 sessions on how to use Zoom for your online pandemic teaching back in 2020. But that was also a certain time with certain feelings. And after being away from training and facilitating for so long, I realized that I do really miss that and I want it back, and I'm kind of good at it. So why not try to look for a more training related job rather than general instructional design? Community engagement is also somewhat new to me, although I was definitely of the old internet era where we had Zangas and live journals and MySpace. So I was always drawn to online communities, but lately have really tried to deepen that in terms of volunteering with certain communities. I volunteer for a community called Starling. That is for, I think they call it leaders in the middle, like middle managers, often the folks who are asked to do the most at an organization and who get the least support. I post weekly discussion prompts there to try to get folks to engage. And I volunteered with the TLDC a few times because, again, it's a topic, the whole learning and development field, that is really dear to my heart, that I care about, and that I want to meet other people doing this with because I learn so much from all of you. Community is also one of the things that really drew me to Roost. And it's because they have such a strong community. I was kind of a stalker or lurker. Our target audience at Roost is MSPs, and that stands for Managed Service Providers. So think of the IT companies who have a lot of different clients. They're not just doing IT in-house for one organization. They were doing things like remote device management and help desk support for maybe a bunch of different clients. So they deal with very complex technical environments, a lot of different technologies, a lot of things that you really want them to be connected, and maybe they're not naturally connected. Roost is an automation platform, so we try to help people build workflows that makes their tech work more effectively and efficiently. I won't go into the whole thing. You can definitely look them up online, but the community was very strong. We have a Discord community where we engage with our customers. They can ask us any questions after attending training sessions. They can ask other customers and Roost staff, about whatever they need help with. And I love seeing how often the community just jumps in to help each other out, sometimes faster than we can get to it. Finally, coding is absolutely the newest skill that I'm learning on the job, and it's pretty fun so far. And I can really see that it will be helpful and relevant to maybe exploring some other avenues in my life. I'm learning how to do a little bit of Python and Jinja, and I'm still learning how to define those terms. But I think that my background as a non-technical person, not a natural coder, is actually an asset here in customer education because our customer base is changing a little bit. We're finding that, sometimes we have people using the product who don't have those years of development experience. So if someone like me can help make the product more accessible to folks without that deep technical expertise, then absolutely that's a skill. And I'm glad that I get to apply that here. I'm going to take a brief pause because my mouth is getting very dry. And I also want to peek at the chat. And I can't do that while also looking at my slides. So we'll take a 30-second break here while I catch up. I see that my non-programmer background is resonating with others. Allison is sharing that she's an introvert. Yep, me too. I never wanted to teach in front of a classroom, but somehow I love teaching online. I think because if I get nervous, I can always just shut the laptop and blame technology really quickly. It's an easy out. Ooh, and Liz is saying, love seeing the different ways people use Discord. Yeah. I think there's even an instructional design Discord that I'm still part of, but I don't spend a lot of time there because I'm part of too many communities. All right, I'll peek more at that chat later because there's more that I want to focus on there, but I know I will get sidetracked. So engagement. This is really where I'm getting to apply what were those skills that I highlighted. Coaching and community engagement, which makes sense. It's kind of why, again, I'm here in customer education, what drew me to learning and development in general. I know that there's a lot of stuff that we want people to learn, but getting them engaged is often the hardest part of the battle. I almost fell asleep in a lot of technical training sessions. I definitely fell asleep in a lot of college lecture courses. And so I've always been determined to find a better way, figure out what resonates with learners, no matter who they are, where they are, or why they're there. I sometimes think that I am too enthusiastic and bubbly when it comes to training, but that's because I really do love it. And I have found that kind of by attending different training sessions where the trainer was really engaging, had good rapport with the crowd, like those are ones that I wanted to be in. Those are ones that I wanted more of. I had a professor that I adjuncted one strategic communications with when I worked at Columbia University. The goal was, again, to overcome my fear of public speaking. And it was some kind of persuasive presentation course. And I loved him so much, and he was so enthusiastic about the field and so supportive of his students that I tried to audit as many other courses as I could with him. And I still think about him whenever I present. So shout out to you, Kevin Visconti, big fan. The same enthusiasm here applies to my work with communities too. I mentioned that I volunteer with Starling, with TLDC, and that I'm running a book club with the customereducation.org Slack group this Friday. I ran one a few months ago, didn't even read the book, but I really enjoyed just meeting with other people, seeing what stood out to them. And some of that actually did motivate me to go back and pick up some parts of chapters that I'd glossed over. The reason that I'm so inspired by Julie Dirkson's latest book, Talk to the Elephant, is because unlike many internal learning and development initiatives, we can't just assign mandatory training to employees to complete. We have customers. Sometimes they are required to attend certain training, but in our case, it's kind of strongly recommended instead. So to me, this is one of the most interesting challenges. When learning is optional, how can we motivate folks to make time for it? And how do we help them see the relevance to their lives? Dirkson says that we can't guess. We can't just say, this is going to motivate them. We do actually have to talk to the elephant, whether that's our employees, our students, or our customers. And so at Roost, we're big again on customer community, and it's one of the things that drew me to the role. I did forget to mention this earlier, but I think I got to give it a plug because I didn't really think I had a shot at getting the role. I knew it looked interesting. I know I wanted to go for it. I heard from my now boss that I was one of the applicants who wrote the most in the application because that's kind of the person I am. I'm very out loud reflective and I write a lot. I'm a writer. But after our first interview, I decided to take a little bit of a risk and send him a thank you email. And you're thinking, well, that's not risky. No, it's not. It's generally a good idea to send a thank you email after interviews. But I peppered mine with chicken puns. I said that there were some more chicken nuggets of info that I had to share and that I almost chickened out in making this video. And the video that I mentioned is one that we now have a headshot of. We have it on our website to announce me doing some live customer trainings, which I'm excited that I'm already doing a month in. I don't know if anyone remembers Snap Camera. It was like a plugin and then it went down. And so I found this random GitHub project, again, power of community, that wants to keep it going. I figured out how to reinstall it. I found a little chicken filter. And so it was me with a virtual chicken on my head going, cluck, I didn't see you there. I just wanted to thank you for the interview and like being real silly. And when I sent that off, I remember thinking, okay, this is either going to get me an immediate rejection or it'll at least get a laugh. But like, I got to be playful. I got to go for this. I got to see if this is something that they're up for. And luckily it was. So just had to mention that before I forgot. Back to Dirkson though. I'm really interested in when learning is optional, how do we make it relevant? What motivates people? And in terms of engagement, my main focus is doing live online customer training sessions. I'm walking people through some pretty complex concepts like coding with Jinja, understanding context variables, stuff that I am still learning. And so it's very important to me to refine my facilitation techniques that I've been practicing over the course of a few years. That's where I go back to that book on 75 interactive techniques. Some of my favorite things are to run polls, to use chat-based activities, to think about multiple ways that people can participate, because I know that, asking people to unmute and share out loud might be a piece of cake to some people, but very daunting to others. And I want to try to hear from as many people as possible, make it really welcoming and a safe environment in which to learn and open yourself up to that. One of my favorite techniques that I want to share with you is what I call the patient pause, or I tend to refer to it as the patient teacher pause. And that's like when I'm really tempted to keep going, but I do want input from the audience. I'll do something like, okay, before I continue, let me know, what are you most hoping to learn today? And it'll feel like radio silence for, what seems like an hour in live online session time, but is really only 15 seconds. So I'll say, okay, I bet it might take you a little bit longer to think. So let me take a drink of water. It's really important to me that I hear from a few of you before moving on, because this is your session. I want to shape it to your needs, and it'll just make it more interesting. There's no wrong answers, right? So I spent a lot of time trying to build that safety so that the audience kind of opens themselves up for learning, opens themselves up for sharing, and gets more out of it than just this one-way delivery street. Julie Dirkson's book also touches on social support. That's the part that I've read up to now. I'm way behind on reading. Don't know if I'll get there in time for Friday, but I'm going to do my best. But social support and accountability and collaboration in terms of education is something that I'm thinking about regularly. Again, it's very different from what can be the common internal learning and development trope of, hello, you are in this workshop to learn about profit and loss statements. Here is your little cohort of people that you just met. Go into breakout rooms and discuss. Like, that can be really challenging. And it can be challenging to get customers to connect and learn from each other. But I think that is a challenge worth pursuing and trying to solve. And it's something that I'm very lucky that we do at Roost pretty well. The community is very supportive. Customers are collaborative, not competitive. They want to help each other out. All right, going to take one more peek at the chat. Oh, that's so nice. The support is shining through even here. Ooh, there's a great question from Stephanie in the chat. How do you help customers who don't want to learn or use tech? I'm going to see if Liz will do me a favor and pop that over into Q&A so we can make sure to answer that question there. And Trisha is saying that the video was a hit with my colleagues, which is great. Yeah, I'm not someone who is easily embarrassed, or I don't know, I used to be, but online it's different somehow. And I'm like, if these people think it's dumb, that's fine. But they didn't. So I like being silly. I was a theater kid in high school. I was more into like playing background characters or trees back then, but big into play. So moving towards frequently asked questions or infrequently asked questions. I got some great questions from friends on LinkedIn about, what are some of the key differences between internal and customer or external education? Do go ahead and add your questions to the Q&A so I don't forget that we have some waiting for me. One of the first questions that my friend Kate in Australia asked me about was, how do internal and external stakeholders differ? And how do you kind of sell and communicate to those different audiences? So in terms of the stakeholder part, this is where I'm really glad to have the support and hard work of my entire team. I don't think that one person can solve this alone. And yet often in internal learning and development, like the sole instructional designer is responsible for all the stakeholder management, et cetera. That always kind of frustrated me. And I know it's not the case everywhere. Our VP of customer experience at Roost has strong MSP. Again, that's our target audience, managed service providers, roots. So she's very involved in those communities. She has a good just intuition and all this knowledge of what our customers need, what they're looking for, what's helpful to them. So that has really helped. Involvement in the community. Again, talk to the elephant, talk to your people. In terms of targeting the different audiences, I think, again, this really relates to getting to know them. What prior experiences are they coming in with? What reservations might they have? And what are they excited about? See how you can tap into that. So maybe an easy answer, but definitely not an easy thing to do. And it's something that really requires continuous practice. Another question that I got from Kate was, how do you approach user personas and needs assessment in customer education? And I appreciate that question because back when I was working internally, I got to do a lot of things like observing the employees that I was training for customer service at the tech company. I got to see what tools they were using, little shortcuts that they took to automate some of their work. I got to interview a few members of the target audience for one training project at the accounting firm, and it was super interesting. Oddly enough, it focused on MSPs too, which I think helped me with Roost. They wanted some empathy training for their tech people. And turns out that empathy wasn't really the problem. The problem was that they had really clunky processes and tools. And so no wonder tickets were slipping between the cracks. Customer service empathy training wasn't going to solve the problem. Better processes would. Anyway, there really is no difference there, but it might be harder to do a needs assessment on your audience. So we try to leverage the connections and data points that are available to us, but it's something that we're always working to refine. I'm really lucky that my colleague Trisha, who's supporting me today, is exploring personas. And to simplify, I think that what we're looking at, Trish, correct me if I'm wrong, is those different backgrounds, the folks who are natural developers, coders, programmers, and the folks like me and Trisha who are not. They will need some different educational experiences. They're going to speed through and slog through different things. So let's think about different pathways that's going to help them learn. Again, user research really helps with that. We survey our audience because sometimes that's one of the quickest and easiest ways to get feedback. But we also try to really embed ourselves in the community, have longer in-depth discussions. We also, I think, get a lot of good feedback from the other people who spend time with our customers, and that is the salespeople, the customer success folks, the support folks. We're always looking for their insights on, what pain points can we help solve through education, or what best practices can we instill at an earlier point to help people avoid some frustration. So it really is a collaborative effort. Which brings me to the next question that I got, which was about cross-functional collaboration. How does that work? How do you get buy-in? I think ultimately it is all about relationships and just keep chipping away at it, do what you can. But I have found that so far, folks in customer education are very collaborative. And because we all are behind wanting to help our customers succeed and, maybe also wanting to deflect some common support tickets, like, I wish people would just know how to do this one thing, we can maybe solve that with an educational product or resource. One of the other things that I think we do really well at Roost in terms of cross-functional collaboration is nearly every Friday we have what we call an open mic session. I actually got to attend one as a lurker when I was still interviewing, which gave me a great taste of what it would be like to join these live as an internal employee. But they're where we share updates from the company, from our colleagues, and also from our customers. Sometimes, and this is the hard part, and where you really got to leverage your relationship skills. But we try to encourage customers to share what they are doing differently, what problems they are solving with our platform, because that can inspire so many different people, because maybe we just haven't thought of that one thing yet. So that's another great place where cross-functional collaboration happens with our customers and with all the different teams across our organization. And the last question that I got here in advance was one that is tricky to answer. And I think that most teams, if not all, are kind of always working to refine it. And that's, how do you demonstrate value or success in customer education? Sometimes this can be a little bit easier in internal learning and development because you've got, these people need to take 200 compliance courses this year. How many of them did it? How many of them do we need to send their manager after to pester them and follow up? And when a lot of things are optional, that is harder to measure. But I think that some things that we look for are our customers increasing their adoption of the platform as they engage in training? Maybe they got stuck at a certain point, and then we can map their training attendance to a live session or watching one of our self-paced lessons, and then we see them doing more in the organization. We can do that with a tech product, so that comes in handy. As I mentioned earlier, we can also look at whether common support tickets are going down because people are finding the answers on their own or doing more troubleshooting early on, or maybe they're giving us more useful information to work with rather than this broke, help. I think that happens everywhere. So education can really help with that. And then finally, I think customer testimonials also really help with this. And don't undervalue the importance of that. when, maybe the CEO asks, well, what's education doing? And prove to me that you should keep your jobs, which is not happening at my company, but I know it has happened to lots of others in customer education, lots of layoffs in 2023 and continuing. So do leverage your customer testimonials. I'm always inspired to see so many shout outs for my fellow trainer, Eddie, the person who I have learned the most about training at Roost from in the community. We regularly hear that Eddie is better than some of their high school and college professors. So again, it's just that element of care that really matters so much. And it, to me, is also one of the things that drives me, just knowing that I've helped someone do a little bit more or solve a problem or get a little bit more unstuck. So I'll go ahead and move to your questions next and catch up on what's happening in the chat. But wanted to wrap up my advice with, when in doubt, chicken wing it. You might think that you have no shot at this job. You might think that working in customer success or education is so totally different from internal, but I think it's not all that different. And I think if you want to do it, if you're motivated to, you can get there. I'm happy to help and chat with anyone on LinkedIn. And I want to thank you all for attending today. I'll go ahead and make my screen a little bit bigger so I can see you all and see if there's any questions I can help answer.
Clea, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. We do have a lot of questions, and
Sweet.
they're in the Q&A panel. If it's okay, can I just read you the first one, the top question that's been upvoted?
Yeah, that sounds good. And I don't know, Liz, if this is your first time moderating. I did one the other day for the conference, and I found it like pretty overwhelming to keep up with the Q&A space. But what I found was that you can sort by upvotes, and then if you
Yeah,
want, you can gradually switch to like the latest. So you see the newest ones at the top, or you can refresh. But yeah,
perfect.
we'll get to as many as we can.
All right. From Rita, how do you balance teaching customers and selling the products?
That's a good one. Again, I think I'm lucky at Roost because my focus is entirely on customer education. I'm not also a salesperson in disguise. I mean, sure, we have to do our best to represent the product in a positive light, but I haven't had too many gripes with it myself. I think because maybe I'm not from that technical background, so I don't know what I don't know. But I have found that when you focus on what matters to people, what's important to them, what problems can this help them solve, that helps me in terms of the education. And it doesn't really feel like selling to me because I just want them to use it to accomplish specific things. Like, it's not like I want them to use it and think of a brand new reason that they have to use this product. To give you a more concrete example, because our product is automation focused, we try to focus on things like, what are those, this comes from Eddie, so another shout out to him, those 20% of your tasks that take up 80% of your time, and they're super tedious and annoying, and you wish you could just automate them. So an example that I demonstrate in our 102 class is showing people how to build a workflow where you make a form. It has 3 simple fields: user, add or remove option, and group. And rather than doing this manual, tedious process of adding people to Microsoft groups, someone fills out the form, and the workflow, the automation in Roost does the work in the back end. So by focusing it on it as problem solving, I think that really helps a lot in terms of education. And it's also a tip that I learned from one of the salespeople, one of the best salespeople, who happened to be a woman at my first job out of college. She said that she doesn't even consider herself a salesperson. She just focuses on getting to know her customers, what problems they have, and how she can help solve them. So that might be cheesy, but that is honestly how I look at it. And we do have a separate sales team that does the sales, and they have quotas, etc.
That's great. Okay, from Allison. So she's coming from, the upselling that she's experienced as a customer and wondering kind of what the difference between customer education and marketing manipulation might be, not in a derogatory or confrontational way, just kind of understanding where that line is.
Oh, yeah. And I can be very critical of tech products. Like, I am an Apple girl, but I also hate Apple in many ways because they make their products kind of hard to use and they kind of make them break more often than not. Like, I remember my old white plasticky MacBook laptop lasting for like 10 years, whereas one of the newer models, it craps out after 2 years. I think I just personally have a hard time with manipulation, so I won't say something unless I absolutely believe in it. There are those jobs where you need to do that. You need to believe in a product that you don't necessarily, or upsell when you don't necessarily think the customer needs that like fancy Jeep. Maybe a Barbie Power Wheels car would be fine for them. But that's not the case for me, and I actively avoid those types of jobs. So it is tough. I don't I'm lucky that I don't have to do it, I guess. And if I did have to upsell, I would try really, really hard to position it around a problem to solve or how this is going to really help. Because that's what I would want as a customer. Like, if you're looking for me to spend money, I really need to be convinced that it's going to be worth it. So that's how I would approach it for customers too.
And Clea, just as an observation, I think one of the kind of overarching themes I've noticed throughout your presentation today is just this amazing thoughtfulness that goes into the work that you're doing. So I think that probably ties in there as well.
Oh, thank you.
Um, of course, yeah. Rochelle has a great question. Lots of upvotes on this one. Piggybacking on Rita's, so that was the first question. How much does customer education have to work with customer problems? And are you on the hook for complaints and support?
Ooh, great question. So if I try to think about my higher education work with faculty support in terms of customer support, because in a way, like adjunct faculty, especially, are customers. Often I did both. I did education and support, and kind of sort of was on the hook for complaints when I was on the team that also managed the learning management system. So when I did have more direct experience with that, which I don't at Roost, we have a really great technical team. Sometimes I kind of lurk in different Discord channels. I'm like, "Ah, I really want to solve this customer's problem. I don't know where they're getting stuck." And my colleagues remind me like, hey, let the tech folks take care of that. You don't need to worry about that. But again, curiosity, core value, gets to me sometimes. When or if the customer education team is also on the hook for support, I think it's actually a good opportunity to focus on, like, what is the cause of the problem? Is it that the person is using the product wrong? Is there an actual bug in the system? Absolutely can happen, especially in tech. So let's solve that and let's let them know, hey, thanks for letting us know. This inspired us to track it down, and hey, our team is on it and we expect a resolution by 2 to 3 weeks or whatever the case. Um, I think also I try to bring it back to when we can help them solve problems, sharing experience from other customers, like, oh, hey, you're new in this trading session. You mentioned that you don't have a technical background. I remember someone who just got certified by completing all of Roost 6 foundational lessons last week. They had a very similar background to yours. They also found that they needed just a little bit more time. Here's some resources that help them. Let me know if I can help you along the way. So that support element is strong to me. I try to position it towards education rather than hand-holding or solving the problem for them. Because again, my goal is to make sure that they can be proficient and do the thing without me there kind of lurking in the background. Um, I don't know if that directly answers the question, but I hope it touches on it at least a little bit.
Thank you.
I
And
think some teams will
from
be different than others, but we have pretty dedicated lanes of there's customer success. They do like I don't actually know everything they do, but a lot of onboarding things. And we have a technical team that helps with the deep tech problems. And then in education, we try to help those teams save some time by really reaching our customers and teaching them about the product, so that they have fewer issues, or they are using the product with more best practices implemented rather than like pain points to fix later.
From Amy, we have, is customer education typically built, so virtual instructor led training, or could it also include primarily designing and creating e-learnings for customers?
Oh, that is a great question. I bet that it also includes e-learning. I think that we might be a little bit unique in terms of we offer the same foundational classes every single week. I think it's why my colleague Eddie is glad that I'm here because, some days he was running up to 3, 4 training sessions, and it's week after week, same stuff, different customers every time. That's what keeps it exciting for me, like figuring out who is there in the room. And sometimes it's no one, and we get free time back. Um, but the majority of the research I've done, like what I've found, and again, it's not extensive, so I'm happy to have other people chime in the chat and share what they know about customer education. But I found a lot of short tutorials. We at Roost have a YouTube channel where my boss Brandon makes a lot of great, fun, uplifting videos. Um, they're focused on like specific use cases or helping you learn how to navigate the platform. So I see a lot of video-based training. I see a lot of documentation, which is important because you always want to have something to refer back to. Um, I'm not sure about e-learning specifically in terms of like using articulate storyline and SCORM, et cetera. But I would say we might be a little unique in terms of doing a lot of virtual instructor-led training. Or maybe not. I'm not sure.
It
But I
looks
know
like
there's a lot of
Ashley had
similarities because, especially when you have customers all over the world, it's really hard to get them in one time, one place, synchronous together.
Ashley had some great thoughts in the chat too. Everything is the right answer. People want to learn how they want to learn, and we need to have all avenues available.
Yeah, and that's Ash from my team. So great to see you here.
Another one from Amy, curious about the key differences between customer education and internal L&D.
Repeat that one more time because I got excited at seeing Ash.
Oh, sure. No worries. So, yes, this was from Amy and curious about the key differences between customer education and internal L&D.
Yeah, that is tricky. And so far, I think the main thing, again, that stands out to me is we can't necessarily make it required. It's not compliance training, very different beast there. Sometimes it is harder to track how much education your customers are doing, especially when you have training open on platforms like maybe they're watching tutorials 10 times on their own in a row on YouTube, and you just don't know that versus looking at what learners are doing in an internal learning management system, like one of the corporate ones, like Cornerstone, for example, or tracking students' page views and course completions in a higher education learning management system. Um, I think the other thing is probably the needs seem so varied, and it can be harder to know what your audience needs and wants. Again, that's something that we're lucky that we have such strong community involvement at Roost. But I know that a lot of companies really struggle with customer education because they're not getting feedback from their customers, or they don't know how to figure out what is going to help these people. They're just doing their best. They're trying a lot. They're experimenting. Experimentation is big in customer ed, is what I'm gathering. And I think that's great, but it can be hard to not have this instant access to like the people in your organization who you're trying to help learn. It's people outside, so you got to try to find a way to reach them.
Wonderful. And I do want to be mindful of your time, Clea. We still have a couple more questions if you have time. Otherwise, maybe I can send these to you via
Yeah.
email.
I think I do. Let me just double check.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Just got to
Okay.
walk my dog, but she can be patient.
From Sarah, what tools do you use for tracking? Is that more of a CRM?
Ooh, that's a good one. I know we use HubSpot. Let Ash and Trisha feel free to chime in with other specific tracking tools. Um, I am very interested in data, but I am super lucky and glad that that is not my focus. I was actually interviewing somewhere else and they had a data analysis project for me. And I'm like, I think I'm going to pass on this. I don't really want to do it. But yeah, tracking is very important. And even in just the past few weeks, we've gotten a lot of useful reports of feedback from our customers of what they're hoping to see done differently in training or things that they want to see more examples of. I think that we also probably have ways to track their journey, like when are they taking the different 6 foundational classes? Um, are they passing their certification exam on the first try? I got super lucky and squeaked by on my first go round. Ashley told me I passed by 1%. um, are they having to take multiple attempts, et cetera? So good question, Sarah.
And then our last one here is how do you help customers who don't want to learn or use tech, especially learning tools?
Yeah, that was a good one. This is where I think back to Kathy Moore. I have her Map It book on my shelf. I use that a lot for internal training, but I think it also applies to customer. And if people don't want to learn, if they don't want to be there, like it may sound cruel, but I remember a talk that Kathy gave about like, why are we hand holding these adult learners? Like they're very capable, they're problem solvers, they have prior experiences. And she had this metaphor of throwing them in to the deep end of the pool, not so they drown, but so maybe they're struggling a little bit. And then maybe they see, oh, maybe I should take that training because I've just spent 20 minutes clicking when I could have just watched that tutorial and figured out how to do it. So that's kind of my sassy answer that comes to mind. Help them see the need for the training by letting them struggle a little bit. Show them maybe via testimonials or chatting with other customers, like how and why the customers who took the training found it helpful. Um, and if you can, talk to that person, see what the barriers may be. Maybe it's they don't have time to take the training. So, what can you do about that? Maybe you need to offer shorter, targeted resources, or I don't know, this is like a wish list thing, but talk to their boss and see how you can get them time to learn the product or how you can advocate for it. You might say something like, yeah, initially up front, your team will need to invest around 6 hours over the course of a 2-week period, but that is going to save them 80% more time because they won't be making some of the common mistakes that we see that we deflect through effective training. And I see that there was a request from you, Liz, to put the names of the books in the chat. So I will go ahead and do that. So they were Talk to the Elephant by Julie Dirksen and Interact and Engage by, I hope I'm spelling her name right, Cassie Labori and Tom Stone. There's also 2 great books that my friend Monica loaned me about customer education. I flip through them occasionally, but I'm a person who has a lot of books that I haven't started. So sorry, Monica, I'll probably keep them for another few months. But there is the Customer Education Playbook that has really good examples, use cases, best practices. And then there's a book called Customer Education and a podcast, because I'm a big podcast fan, called CE Lab.
All right. Thank you so much for putting those in chat. There's also some links there. If everyone would just join me in thanking Clea for being here, for sharing her expertise with us today. This was fantastic. Is there any way, Clea, before we part, that we can keep up with you, keep up with what you're doing in the community?
Oh, sure. Let me grab a link to my LinkedIn. I'm probably the only Clea Mahoney there, but you never know. the other Clea that I work with at B Channels, her name was Clea d'Amour, which means Clea of love. So like she is the cooler name for sure. But I'm regularly available on LinkedIn. I always love meeting people. Just don't sales pitch me in your first intro. That'll get blocked. And thanks so much, everyone, for your support. Again, I love this community. You're always so supportive. And I hope everyone got a little bit of something out of this. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.